everyone, Jem here and welcome to my creative space. Hi everybody. Alright, today we're back with the next instalment in our Dephemereber challenge, and today I'm going to be working on prompt number 11, which is least favourite ephemera and Bookbinders art. Now I had to think pretty carefully about this one in terms of what is my least favourite ephemera. And it took me a little while, and suddenly the light bulb went on. And my least favourite ephemera is clusters. Don't ask me why. They're just not something I've ever got into making. And I've been sitting here trying to rationalise why they're my least favourite ephemera. It's not that I don't like them. It's not that they're, I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, I'm picking these as my least favourite ephemera. But as you can see, what I've done this morning is I've, in the spirit of the challenge, I've pulled out a whole load of scraps of fabric and I've had a little go, and this is the first one that I've come up with. So I'm going to be making a few of these, and whilst I'm making them, I'm going to be thinking about what to do for the Bookbinders art part of the prompt today. Because this is one I've been thinking on for a couple of days, and I've looked through some of my bookbinding books. So I'm going to think about how to interpret that whilst I sit and make a few more of these clusters. Because when I look at them and when I think about this logically, you know, they seem to be a really good thing to have in your stash. You know, you can pull them out, pop them in, and they be something that I could sit and make whilst watching TV or watching a YouTube video. They're a great way of using up scraps. All those things that I love can be made of paper, can be made of fabric. So I can't figure out why they're my least favourite ephemera, but suffice to say they are. Maybe today will convert me. So if you've never made clusters, I will show you one. And then I'm going to just sit and play and make a few. I'm going to pull out some different coloured scraps as well and make some in different colours. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm going to get my brain ticking over and think about how to interpret the Bookbinders art part of this prompt. Alright, so as I say, clusters can be made with fabric or with paper or with a mixture of both. And people often incorporate lace or other bits and pieces in them as well. But basically choose some, in this case, fabric scraps. And the easiest way to do it is to actually sort of make a pile. Now, I mean, as you will see, these are scraps from the inside of my Dephemereber journal cover. So I thought it might be appropriate to use some of those. And the easiest way to start is just to make a pile of some bits and pieces that you think might go together. So this one, we've got the same sort of colours, and we could have that as one or two separate pieces. I think I'm just going to stick with the green to start with, and literally you pile up your scraps until they please you, really. So something like that was what I did on the other one. What else can I put on there? Maybe a snip of this. This is some webbing which I coffee dyed. And you can fray things out, and you will see if you have a look at this one, I frayed out the edges on some of that woven fabric. So if you like that more sort of tatty look, you can do that. And you'll see this piece of webbing is fraying out quite nicely at the ends. So how's everybody going? Are we getting ready for Christmas? Do you celebrate? There's a question. I know not everybody does, and certainly we keep it pretty low key here because we're often working. We Mr. Jem and I run tourist accommodation, and we're usually open and pretty busy at Christmas. So Christmas is often a bit of a non-event for us personally, but we try and get together with the family beforehand and have a bit of a celebration. But if you do celebrate, I hope you're not stressing about it, because that, I think, is a big problem with Christmas, particularly these days. It gets just too commercialised and it just becomes a whole heap of stress. So, all right, little rant aside, there we go. So I'm just starting to pile things up, having a look, what's pleasing to me. Do I want to cut things to different sizes? I do quite like, in this one I used this, it isn't really lace. Let me find it and show you. I don't even know where it came from. It's kind of, it's not really fabric. It's just a woven strip really, and it's got a little bit of sparkle in it. And just snipping a little bit of that off and adding it in, I quite like. It just seems to give it a bit of a lift. I'm going to take that bit out, I think, on this one. So yes, so clusters, really, you just pile them up until they please you, and then you can put a button on or a piece of ribbon. Now I have lots and lots of buttons, so for me it's a time when I can use my buttons up. I've seen other people cut little motifs out of fabric. So for example, if you wanted to cut a flower and pop on top or something like that, you can do. I'm going to pull out some of my buttons. Let's have a look. They might be a bit dark. What's in this one? Might be able to find something in here. I was incredibly privileged to inherit my grandmother's button box when she passed away, and it was one of the old biscuit tins, and it was absolutely chocker. And despite the fact that she passed away in 1998, I still have a lot of buttons which were originally in her box. Now, obviously I've added to them over the years, but some of these lovely big, look at these. I mean, they're too big for these clusters, but you know, you wouldn't find those these days, would you? So there we go. That's quite big, but actually I don't dislike that on there. That might, I think I might fray that silk out a little bit more. So really, with, you know, as I say, with these clusters, it's really just kind of playing with what you have until it pleases you. I mean, you could leave it like that. I want a little bit more of something in there. I'm going to put that on there, I think. And I prefer things all sort of at odd angles. You might like to line them up a bit more. I'm going to keep those buttons out because they're the sort of the colours I'm using at the moment. And so once you've got your cluster how you want it, I tend to use my thread doubled. Don't know whether you can see that. I'm going to double up that thread. And I put a little stitch through all the layers in the middle to hold it before I actually stitch the button on, and I just find that's easier. As I say, I really haven't made too many of these. But I've been sewing for a long time. So there we go. And oh, there we go. Couldn't find the hole. And then to just finish it off, I'm make a couple of stitches on the back. Oh. Snip the thread off and we're done. So nothing complicated about them. In fact, it often takes me longer to decide how I want to layer them up than it does to make them. So there you go. I'm going to make a few more of these. As I say, I might pull out some different colours because I can see the benefits of having a few of these around. And whilst I do that, I'm going to apply my brain and think about how am I going to interpret Bookbinders art. So as you can see, I have made a few clusters, and I even did a little Christmassy one. I have to say, I don't dislike them as much as I thought, and I can potentially see some use for these. So you never know. Maybe doing this challenge and working with my least favourite ephemera has sparked a bit more of a love of these clusters. And you'll see I didn't use a button on all of them, and some of them I've actually just stitched the threads that I pulled off the edge in. This one I made sort of a little flower with a piece of silk. So it is really yeah, a good way of using up bits and pieces. So other than the Christmassy one, I have stuck to fairly neutral sort of colours today, greens, browns and a bit of yellow. And so that will probably be the kind of a colour theme for the page. And so still thinking about this Bookbinders art. So I googled, please define Bookbinders art. What Google came up with is Bookbinders art is the skill and creativity involved in joining paper sheets together to create a book. It involves measuring, cutting, gluing and sewing pages together. The process is determined by the materials and the layout. So I think, and of course the journals that we make come into that Bookbinders art. So I think today I'm going to go with journal within a journal, I think. So I'm going to be working in miniature, and if time allows I'd like to do two. I want to make an accordion journal and a miniature journal with 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So let's clear these up for now, get some materials out and take it from there. Right, so I've pulled a few things out and I think I'm going to go with the Christmassy theme today. So I've got these, which actually I've salvaged them from crackers, Christmas crackers. As I said, Mr. Jem and I run tourist accommodation. We also do catering for people, and we did a Christmas party for a work group this week, and I salvaged all the packaging, or the actual body of the crackers, so which is quite nice cardboard, so I might use some of those. I've also got this, which as you can see is a tissue box, but it's got quite a nice pattern on the cardboard there, and I've got a napkin. So I'm going to have a play, see how I go. My idea is 2 little journals within a journal. So I'm looking at doing, as I say, one with 3-hole pamphlet stitch and one which is more of an accordion one. I've also pulled out this. This comes from a store called Kmart, and this is reasonably cheap, but this is they call it an artist sketch pad, and the paper in here is really nice. It says it's 160 GSM, but it's actually it's got a nice bit of body to it, and so particularly for the accordion journal I'm going to use this. Right, so I'm going to keep these quite small so that they fit in my journal, and I've chosen this bit of cracker packaging. It's not too shiny. And I'm going to turn this into, now I'm pausing, I have just noticed this has still got its little tag on which fits in like that, and I'm just wondering whether I can do something with that as part of the journal. Yes, okay, I'm going to keep that. Right. If you've watched any of my videos, you know I fly by the seat of my pants and change things as I go along. Okay, I'm going to trim this up, this side, to make it square, and then I'm going to fold it so that I can use that tab, and I'm going to cut some pages to go in it. And as I say, it's going to be really simple, but it's going to be demonstrating the 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So let's go. Alright, so I'm creasing that along there, and then I'm going to make sure that that tucks in there. Again, I'm going to crease that. Let's get my bone folder. Do it properly, Gem, do it properly. There we go. So I've got a ready-made, wow, look at that. I've got a ready-made little journal cover. And I'll show you. Just have a little bit careful tucking it in there. I'll show you what this is. It's the end of the Christmas cracker. So imagine that's like that. You've got your cracker here, and if you look, these ones came with the little tabs, and so literally all I've done is cut this off. There you go. Upcycling your Christmas stuff already. Okay, so I'm going to measure this, and I'm going to cut some pages to go in. So my pages need to Alright, I pulled out this bit of it's actually done on the gel plate. I was playing around the other day, and this was a stencil, and I think this is just about long enough. So I'm going to paste this in and then cut round it, and we will have the inside covered. So I'm just going to be using Alright, so there's our little journal cover, and I'm just wondering now whether to stitch around it or whether just to ink the edges. I think I am going to take the time to just run the sewing machine really quickly around that. I just think it's going to add something more. Okay, so there's my mini little journal cover, all stitched around, and we've got some funky gold lining. So I'm going to create myself a little jig and make some holes and put the pages in. So let's, now I'm absolutely sure that most of you watching will have done this, but just for anybody that hasn't, I will walk through this process quite just in terms of how we do 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So as you will see, I've cut a piece of paper to the height of my journal cover, and I have folded it in half. Actually, I've folded it in half both ways. So that is the middle of my paper, and so that is where one hole is going to be. Now you can eyeball this or you can measure it. Now this is obviously only a small journal, so I'm going to go about 1.5 centimetres in from both ends. Now you have to remember that often your pages are not quite as tall as your journal cover, So make sure that those holes are going to go through your pages. Alright, so that's my jig for my pages. I have a little thing like this, which Mr. Jem made me. It's just a very simple balsa wood triangle, and I find this really helpful, because what you do next is you line your jig up with your journal cover. For me, I use this is a weeding tool from Cricut. It's nice and sharp, and you go through and put your holes where your dots are, and then same process. Now it's always useful to grab a little peg and hold your pages together so that they don't move around. Put your same jig in. Now remember that you're going to have a little bit of overlap at each end, so excuse me, so here and here you need to just make sure the paper is equidistant, so overlapping the same amount each end, and that is, as I say, because your pages are slightly smaller than your journal cover. And then again you're going through and making holes in those same 3 places. And then we're going to put them together. So thread. Now I have a pretty big needle, which is for this purpose, it's probably a little bit overkill for a mini journal like this, but that piece of thread is not going to be long enough. I might go white actually, because there's some white on the cover there and I have it here. The rule of thumb, I think, is 2.5 times the height of your journal for your thread, if you want to be precise. Alright, so thread your needle from the middle. Actually, you can go from the outside or the inside, depending on the look you want. Through the middle hole, and then back through the top hole, leave yourself a tail, back down through the middle. Oh. And back up through the bottom. And then what I like to do is to go underneath that one, and at this point you want to make sure everything is pulled nice and tight. And then I tie what we used to call a reef knot. So I've gone right over left and under, left over right and under. And for a mini journal like this, I would consider that that was enough. It's not going to have lots of stress on it. I'm probably going to use it as a journaling spot or notebook. So I would consider just one knot like that enough. And then you can grab your bone folder again. Disappeared under the chaos of my desk. There we go. Make those creases nice and firm. And voila, a mini journal demonstrating the Bookbinders art of a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. Alright, so for the accordion book I want to use this tissue box, and as you can see I've just slit it down to open it out, and I'd like to make the accordion book to be round about the same size as the mini journal. And if we have a look, you will see that actually that would be ideal, because I could do it from this panel. So let's take this panel off, and I'll put that away to use another day. I love anything like this. I'll just show you this. I mean, this poor old tissue box is a bit old and it's got a bit battered, but anything like this with an aperture I absolutely love. And if you've seen any of my recent videos, you'll see I made a journal cover out of some packaging with an aperture. Anyway, I digress. Let's concentrate. So, accordion book, I want 2 ends which are about that size. And I'm literally just going to draw a line there and there. And I am going to measure for this. Alright, I'm going to cut these at 9 centimetres. Alright, so I've got my squares of 9 by 9 cardboard, and you see I've actually got 4. I haven't made an accordion book for absolutely ages, and when I was cutting my squares out, I suddenly thought, yeah, the way I make an accordion book, I use 4 of these, so 2 for each cover. So they're pretty, aren't they? And I could just leave them like this, and probably the inside ones I will. I'll pick the 2 that are least crumpled, and I'll use those as the insides of the covers. These 2 I'm going to decoupage a napkin onto them. So I've just peeled off the top layer of the napkin. Don't throw the white bit away. There's lots of things you can do with this. And this one particularly, I don't know whether you can see, it's got like a ghost print here. And you can do some really cool things with those. I will link one of my videos up in the top corner, which is all about using napkins. But for now, right. So I'm going to decoupage this with some watered down PVA onto these 2 pieces of card, and then I'm going to put those aside to dry. Okay, so from that artist sketch paper that I showed you earlier, the 160 GSM, I've cut 2 strips, so it was an A4 piece, and I've cut 2 strips which are 8.5 centimetres. So they're just half a centimetre smaller than my covers, and that just gives me a little bit of room to play with. Alright, so now with each of these strips I am going to measure 1 centimetre in from the ends, and I'm going to fold. Now the easiest way I find to do this, if I can find, I've got one of these which I think is it's for embossing. I think it says embossing tool, but it's got a little round thing on the end, and I find it easiest just to score with that. So with whatever you normally score with. So I'm folding in 1 centimetre at the end. From there I am going to measure 8.5 centimetres, and again 8.5 centimetres, and I'm going to get 3 on here, so 3 lots of 8.5. So I'll do that top and bottom. Now, I don't know whether this is the only way to make an accordion fold book or booklet. This is the way I was taught many years ago. So I'm going to score on each of those marks. If you have one of those lovely scoring boards that have got all the measurements on, it would be ideal for doing this. But unfortunately, that's not a piece of kit I possess. Alright, and so then I'm going to fold and I'm going to fold in a what do you call it, mountain then valley fold, so in a zigzag pattern. That makes it easier. You'll see in a moment. And you just need to ensure that when you fold, your edges are all nicely lined up, which that one isn't. For some reason that last one didn't score quite straight. Let's just straighten that up a bit. Okay, there we are. So that is mountain and valley folds there. You can do exactly the same with the second piece. So both pieces folded the same. There you go. And then you're going to reverse one of them so that the two smaller pieces of 1 centimetre sit inside each other like that. Okay, so we've got them sitting just inside each other like that. And you can either use glue or double-sided tape. We're going to fix those together. I'm going to use double-sided tape, I think, today. And now I've got this slightly wider one, which I think is 1 centimetre, so it should fit down there just nicely. So this is going to go inside there, so I need double-sided tape on this bit here. Probably looks quite confusing watching me do it, but when you do it yourself, it's it makes sense. All right, so this is a little bit fiddly, and as I say, if you prefer using glue, you can use glue for this. This is the downside of double-sided tape, isn't it? Especially when I'm filming, because it never comes off. All right, so this is the tricky little bit. You've just got to line them up. So I'm holding this piece out of the way. I'm lining that up top and bottom along that fold, and then I'm going to let that piece go. There we are. And just give that fold a nice burnish again. And so what you've done is actually doubled the length of your accordion. Now, if you've got much longer paper than I had, then, you know, that's great. If for whatever reason you've got big sheets, fantastic. And you can join as many together as you like. Now, if I was going to join another one on, I would just cut this flap to be 1 centimetre and it would work exactly the same. I could join another one on here. But for today, I'm going to leave it just with those 2 pieces joined. That gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 6 pages the other side as well. All right, so what I'm going to do next, these are going to be the inside covers of my journal. I've just got a little pencil mark on there, so I'm going to take that off. And I'm going, a little bit of extra packaging there, which I'm just going to get rid of because I don't want that bulk. And I'm just going to ink around the edges of these before I stick them together. Right. So what I'm going to do now is to stick one of these here. This is where you have to think. Or I have to think. Yeah, so one there and one there, because they are going to be the inside cover of my little book. Okay, so I am going to use, and this is where it's quite helpful if you've got a little bit of a bigger tab. I'm going to use glue for this. I'm just using, this is a glue called Tiger Grip, which I can get here in New Zealand. It's a bit stronger than PVA. And if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that it's my go-to. Right, so with this, I want to line up with this crease. No, I've done that wrong. Hold on. Let me think. No, that is right. Just ignore me. You'll see. I want to line up with that crease, but I also want to line up so that I've got the same gap here and here. Just like when you're doing a book page, you leave just a little bit at the top and the bottom. Press that down firmly. Okay. That's it. And that's the back cover. I'm going to do exactly the same here. This is going to be our front cover, the inside of the front cover. And again, it might look confusing, but once you've made your first one, you'll get what I mean. So lining that up here and here, and with that crease. This is why I prefer glue, because you get a couple of minutes wiggle room to just make sure you've got it in the right place. Okay, there we go. Now, next step, we need to see if our front outside covers are dry. Okay, I think my video cut out there, so I'm not sure how much of that you saw. So what I will do is just tell you, these are the front covers that I put the napkins on. I've gone around the back edge with a bit of glue stick and I've just folded the edges over. What I'm going to do now, and you can see that beautiful colour coming through from the tissue box. There we go. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, I'll put some notes on the screen when I can have a look and see how much we lost. All right. What I'm going to do now, you'll see this is the accordion book. We've got our inside covers. These are going to be our outside covers, like this. Now, one of the things, and it's going to fold like this. So one of the things you need to decide at this point before you put the outside covers on is whether you want any kind of tie closure, because this would be the time to put it on if you do. And I'm going to do a very simple one for this, and I'm going to go and find a bit of ribbon that's going to go all the way around. I don't feel this needs anything too fancy, and so I've got this quite pretty narrow green ribbon, so I'm just cutting the ends. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the middle, and that's going to be the back. Oh, look at that, they're just about the same, aren't they? Aha! So that's going to be the back. That's about the middle, and again I'm just going to put a blob of glue stick in there just to hold it for a minute, and that literally is just holding it there, because what I'm going to do now is to put glue all over the back of here and then sandwich the two together. I'm going to go back and use my stronger glue for this. It's a bit of a trip down memory lane. I haven't made accordion books for years. Right, so you want to just make sure you've got it lined up how you want it. Keep that ribbon there. And match up the two pieces. There we go. And we then do exactly the same with the front cover. and the back and the back. And so to close it up with this method, you literally tie it in a bow. There we go. So we've made an accordion book, a little mini journal with 3-hole pamphlet stitch, and some clusters, which is the least favourite ephemera. Now just got to figure out how to put it all together. So here is my Dephemereber journal. We've got the 2 different types of mini journals that we've made, demonstrating the bookbinding art, and then we have the least favourite ephemera in our pile of clusters. Now I've had a look through. I think I'm going to put these little books in separately, I've got to be honest. I've got this pocket here that was one I made when I did the journal originally. I did just put a few things in, and I'm thinking that I might pop this mini journal in there, and my little cluster I made with the red velvet on the back, I'm thinking that that might go there, and that's quite nice. I have a preference for pages that aren't too fussy, but I do feel that this needs something in the background. This is a photocopy of a sheet I collaged for making a zine, but I have pulled this out, and this is a stamp I have had for years. In fact, I've had it that long. I bought it when I lived in England, and I've been in New Zealand more than 20 years now. But it comes from Bookbinders, and it says made in the USA, and it's called wire poinsettia. So there you go. I don't know whether you can still get these. It says Wireworks on the side as well. But it's really pretty. It's one I've used a lot. So I think I'm going to put a couple of poinsettias in the background there, and then tuck that mini journal in there. But what I am going to do is just to remove my altered playing cards that I made the other day, because then I've got a bit of a flatter surface to stamp on. Right, so I'm going to try and be a bit clever, and you can see that I've tried to do this before and have the poinsettia in red and the leaves in green. So I've got my stamp pads, and we'll just see what we can do. It's just a case of lining things up quite carefully. Now, I've also got some Christmas washi tape, and I've got a bit with poinsettias here, and I'm wondering whether to use it to decorate this next. This is an envelope actually, but what I'm thinking is that I might turn this into kind of a journaling spot with a bit of washi tape. Okay, so I had a hunt around and I found this little ticket that says wonder, and for me I think that's quite appropriate, because I guess Christmas is a time when I start wondering about the new year. I start thinking, wondering what the new year is going to bring, and I think particularly this year we're trying to make some changes in our lives, and I think that wondering how all that's going to pan out, I think that's quite an appropriate sentiment for me, and I quite like that across there. So as you will see, I've just found another little bit of the red velvet material that was underneath that cluster, and I'm not going to glue this all over. I'm just going to put a little bit in the middle to hold it, And you'll see I've frayed the ends out there. And again, just a little bit. And the edges on a little ticket. I did ink the edges of that. There we are. All right, so that's that page done. And you'll see I've just put a little, a few vague pencil lines across there as a journaling spot. And I will go through and find a little home for this one as well. But I'll do that off camera and show you next time. So for now, we have prompt 11, which was Bookbinders art. So we've got 2 different forms of books that we have made, and least favourite embellishment or ephemera, which for me was the clusters, and we've used that one there. But I've also made a whole load, and I'm sure that they will pop up in the journal somewhere along the line. So maybe they're not my least favourite ephemera anymore. I don't know. But anyway, for now, folks, thank you for watching. I hope this has been useful. Please do flick me a like if you've enjoyed the video. It does help with pushing these out so that other people get to see the videos as well. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Ka kite anō.